Okay, Timmy, so I know you didn't like these toys, so on top of your weekly model releases, I got you something special. Thank you, Mother. I shall continue to cherish these kind gifts you shower me with. I will never forget this. I love you. There is no doubt that Space Marines are popular. Hell, they're what started 40K to begin with and are beloved by old and new players alike. But there's also no doubt that there is just so much Space Marine bloat. Thanks to some math done by the Warhammer Patreon slaves, free my boys, we learned that Space Marines have the largest number of models out of any faction. No surprise there. And that it takes multiple other big factions to even come close to the number of models that Space Marines has. Well, then why did I clickbait you with the title if I think Space Marines are bloated? Well, that comes to how GW handled the rules. Now, to their credit, GW did a pretty good job allowing any chapter to take any detachment rather than locking a certain set of rules to a certain chapter. Major upgrade compared to other editions. So let's give GW a round of applause for doing something pretty good. Or as the Space Wolves would say, a pause. Let's say Games Workshop decided to release 10 completely different Space Marine armies, complete with different rules and completely different detachments, leaving everything else to rot and wither away. What would become of the game? Would AdMech still be the most expensive army? How would Space Marines even work? Let's take a look at in a world where the Space Marines. Let's just get on to the point of the video.
What if Space Marines had actual army rules and weren't just detachments and stuff?
There's one thing I wanted to throw out there so that one of the later chapters makes a little more sense. In this, I see every chapter as their own army, but they still have to share models. The day I want more Space Marine models is the day I ask my friend to old yeller me.
Don't see any other way.
In this evil and twisted world, I see the generic Space Marine models like I do the Hellbrute or the Chaos Lord, where they're mostly the same except they could have different abilities depending on the chapter they're in. Otherwise, chapter-specific models stay with their chapter, and that's about it. So first off, we got the Ultramarines, the pride and joy of GW. The poster boys, the Ultra Smurfs, the Elf.
Don't you dare finish that sentence. Don't do it. I'm sick of it.
Your guys' new army rule would be Oath of Moment. Yeah, you guys wouldn't change. Not much, anyway. Someone's gotta take on the generic Space Marine rule, and the Ultramarines are like pretty much the learner's permit faction. That's like how everyone learns about Warhammer. So, sorry, but I didn't need to make something new for you guys. And besides, all of the current detachments would still work for the Ultramarines, because you guys are the jack of all trades and can't be bad at any. Blood Angels players are the types of people to cough if you put too much garlic in their food and burn in sunlight faster than an Eldar child. The Blood Angels are really known for two things, the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. And, well, losing their super sexy twink Primarch, but that's besides the point. To get them rearing and ready to go, we just need to bump up the two things that they're known for.
This shit ain't nothing to me, man. I'm a dog. I'm biting the fart bubbles into bath.
The idea I came up with was to have Blood Angels players heal their model/unit when killing enemies in melee. Simple, but effective. This way it actually feels like they drink the blood of their enemies when killing them, and it helps push them towards the melee-centered playstyle that they're known for. The Black Rage in 9th was like GW dipping their toes in the kiddie pool of creative army rules. After making a successful charge, roll the dice for any infantry/dreadnought unit. On a 4-up, they become enraged. The enraged unit gains buffs to its melee attacks and damage, along with some kind of damage reduction. But the enraged unit gets an OC of 0, and it can no longer control themselves. They must always move/charge towards the nearest enemy unit should they end up outside of engagement range. This unit cannot fall back. If there are no units within 9 inches of this model, in your next command phase, the rage dissipates. The model is no longer enraged, losing its buffs but regaining its OC and control over its unit. Any Death Company models get this ability permanently and obtain the Deep Strike keyword. I wanted it to feel like you really couldn't control them from rampaging across the battlefield, and Death Company models who are already afflicted with the Black Rage could be dropped in like sword-swinging bombs. Now we're going to go look at an entirely different playstyle, going from unstoppable force to immovable object. The Imperial Fists, the last wall of humanity. If you don't count the Custodes. I don't know much about Imperial Fists players, but I usually hear the worst tournament stories about them, so I guess they're all assholes like Daddy Dorn. In lore, the Imperial Fists are all about being tanky defensive warriors, building the best defenses and strongholds that the Imperium has. Except for anything built by the Custodes, I'm really starting to see a pattern here. Something funny I usually hear about these guys is that they're like the second Ultramarines, which currently they play the exact fucking same, so I guess that checks out.
This will help. He's nice.
Humanity's Wall. All Imperial Fist models get bonuses to their ranged attacks, as well as a small damage reduction should they be within a ruin, forest, or Imperial Fist terrain feature. This ability would give them a terrain/stronghold focused playstyle, trying to keep the enemies at bay while holding down a locked position.
Very good!
During the reinforcement step of your movement phase, Imperial Fist's infantry/dreadnought units can choose to fortify their position, in which this unit can no longer charge, but will be considered to have not moved for the case of the heavy keyword only. This ability cannot be used if they are being affected by Humanity's Wall. This gives the Imperial Fists that immovable object feel I think they need, without actually making them immovable.
You cannot beat me!
And now this final one's kind of experimental, so I'm not sure that it would stick. If a vehicle from your army dies, and it does not explode, you may move this destroyed vehicle up to 6 inches and use it as a terrain feature. It is otherwise considered dead for battle purposes. Any Imperial Fists units around the dead vehicle within 3 inches get Humanity's Wall. This ability cannot be used if the vehicle explodes or is unable to be set up 4 inches away from any nearby terrain. This gives the Imperial Fists one last tool in case they can't reach terrain, and so they can't block off the board unfairly. Playing around terrain can be tricky, but honestly, I'd actually try this out because it sounds really fun. And besides, it's not like anyone would play the Imperial Fists for their lore. You know, I wonder if I'm being sent any pipe bombs yet. The Space Wolves are probably my favorite chapter of Space Marine. They go on these long sagas to tell stories about at these great big feasts, and they drink poison and to get drunk, and it's just, they're really fucking cool. And GW, you nailed it on the head. Their detachment rule is super creative and unique, and I think it fits the Space Wolves perfectly. But god damn, GW, please give them a range update. There's only so much Old Marine Finecast that I can handle. To make a new army rule for you guys feels a little redundant. Personally, I would just buff up your current detachment rule into an army rule, but for the sake of creativity, I thought I'd come up with something else as well to work for you guys. Once per battle, at the end of your command phase, you may call the Storms of Fenris, covering the entire battlefield in a blizzard for one whole battle round. Enemy units would get a debuff to move in charges, as well as all Space Wolves mounted units would get the Lance keyword to their melee profiles, and any Space Wolves units get a damage reduction and a +1 to hit during the blizzard. This ability cannot be used on battle round 1. This alternate rule would dive more into their connection to their homeworld Fenris, but I still believe their detachment rule is the correct option for their army rule. We would just have to buff it up. The Dark Angels were kind of a headache, at least to try and make a rule for. To start, lore-wise, they're all about trying to kill, but also save their fallen brothers, because half their chapter turned renegade, I think, around the Horus Heresy. Luckily, the lore with the Lion release kind of made them a little less repetitive, plus now they're just way less pompous dickheads, so I think that's a plus. And finally, they're made up into 3 distinct sections: Deathwing, Ravenwing, and Greenwing. Deathwing is their Terminators, Ravenwing is the White Scar wannabes, and Greenwing is just everything else. They also have access to the Emperor's Closet of Goodies, which means they have plasma. Just a shit ton of plasma. In your command phase, you can select up to 5 units from your army. During this turn, that unit becomes Fallen, becoming battle shocked as well as gaining a nerf to their ranged and melee attacks. At the start of your next command phase, the selected battle shocked units no longer become battle shocked, losing the nerf to their attacks and gaining a buff depending on what wing they belong to. This effect would last until your next command phase. This effect cannot stack on the same unit twice until the buffs wear off. All Deathwing models gain a buff to ranged and melee attacks as well as a slight buff to movement. Ravenwing models gain a +2 to movement and a 5-up invulnerable save. Greenwing models from your army gain a +1 to damage on all plasma weapons. I really like this. I think it plays really well around the idea of the Lions saving the Fallen rather than, just flat out killing them and anyone who might know. Now, onto the other Green Space Marines. Salamanders are the nicest and most humane faction out there. In the heat of battle, there's nothing more heartwarming than bringing the flame of the Emperor to any enemies you may face. They're the Flamer heavy chapter. The Salamanders have quite the obsession with fire, as well as crafting and making weapons and stuff, but their only real gene seed defect makes them, it makes their skin, is getting hot here. Because they don't have any gene seed defects, their entire rules are going to revolve around their love of flamers. Dragon's Breath would allow the Salamanders to overclock their flamers when declaring shots, giving all flamer weapons more range, strength, damage, attacks, etc., but would make them hazardous when used. All flamer weapons equipped by Salamander units have the ability to ignite the enemy. In their command phase before the battle shock phase, they must roll a dice per ignited model. On a 4-up, that model is extinguished. If the roll fails, they take 1 mortal wound and are then extinguished. Characters, monsters, and vehicles take D3 mortals instead. The Infernus squad unit becomes a battle line unit. When a Salamander's unit equipped with a flamer takes an objective, they may ignite the objective. This objective then stays under their control until taken by an enemy unit. If the enemy unit takes this objective, they must roll a dice. On a 2 to 5, they become ignited. On a 6, they take D3 mortals instead. This ability seems really strong in my opinion, but they do fit what I believe the Salamanders are all about, and I would definitely have a ton of fun bathing the enemy in fire. Let's head into this chapter. To make a rule for this chapter, I've got a good head on my shoulders, but I guess I shouldn't get ahead of myself.
Algorithms of Annihilation. When a friendly unit is in range of a data spike, they get buffs depending in which algorithm was chosen when the data spike was planted. When a data spike is planted, you may choose one of the following algorithms to be in effect. Data 1. Mechanized March. Ranged weapons in this unit gain the Assault keyword. Data 2. Blessed Machine Parts. Ranged weapons in this unit gain a +1 to AP. Data 3. Cut Down the Defiant. Melee weapons in this unit gain 2 extra attacks. Data 4. Metal never flinches. Units with this line of code gain a 5+ feel no pain. Beta 5. Let the Omniscience guide us. Roll to D6 in your command phase. The selected unit gains one of the following traits, based on the results. 2 to 3, -1 to hit in all weapons, 4 to 5, gain the stealth keyword, 6 to 7, +2 inches to moves, 8 to 9, +1 to wound rolls, 10 to 11, +1 CB, 12 +1 BB. Beta spikes. Core concept. A physical beacon that this army must do an action to plant. Once planted, you may select an algorithm that the beta spike will transmit to friendly units while they are within its range. Any friendly unit within 12 inches of the beta spike is now affected by the algorithm previously chosen. Once you have selected an algorithm for a data spike, you cannot change which algorithm it is transmitting.
When deploying your army, the controlling player may equip 3 units from their army with a data spike.
When equipped with a data spike, that unit can do an action to plant the data spike anywhere on the battlefield. The units you choose to equip with data spikes may not perform any other forms of actions until the spike is planted.
To plant a data spike, that unit must perform the action at the start of the shooting phase. The action is completed in your next command phase. You cannot shoot or charge when performing the planned action. When the data spike is fully set up in the battlefield, it has a wounds characteristic of 8. It has a 4+ invulnerable save, and cannot be the target of attack, unless in engagement range, or the closest eligible target to the enemy. While a friendly Astartes unit is within its aura, it has the lone operative keyword.
That is all you need to know about the White Scars. Coming up with new rules for these guys, I thought of 2 things. 1 is their Book of Vengeance. 2 is like a kid on his birthday, learning to ride their bikes. If an enemy takes an objective previously owned by your army, add a 2+ to charge rolls made against that unit holding said objective. When a mounted unit in this army makes a successful charge against an enemy unit, once the fight phase has completely resolved, this unit can make a fallback move up to 6 inches without any fallback penalties. I really wanted to put the emphasis on mounted units and bikers, so I think this would help get them into the spotlight when doing so. Since these guys have really cool looking white armor, I thought for the next chapter, let's go to the opposite end of the spectrum.
All right, who's ready to go find this spy?
Right behind you.
Raven Guard. The edgy middle schoolers turned Space Marines. The Raven Guard are pretty unique for Space Marines. They rely on stealth and can go from one shadow to another at any given point. Wait a minute. I think this allows for quite a bit of uniqueness on the tabletop. And there's a few fun things you could do with this, but I think I chose the absolute stupidest one, so just give me a chance to explain. In Age of Sigmar, the Gloomspite Gits have an army rule that deals with the phases of the moon,
The bad moon spoke to me once.
where you have to map out where the moonlight is on the battlefield, and your army gets buffed whether they are in the light or not. It's one of the most unique army rules I've ever seen in all of Warhammer. This is what I'd want to do with the Raven Guard, but the opposite. I'd have them watch the time of day and watch where the shadows are. If they end a move within these shadows, they can move that unit to another set of shadows. This is a weird ability that would definitely need a lot of tweaking, but having to be on one side of the terrain and seeing where the shadows are is just silly and stupid and just so much fun.
This is for all my baby girls. I see your comments, ladies, and they make me smile. I'm lurking and I'm stalking when you least expect.
Labor Day or Black History Month?
Labor Day.
If it was up to you, would you want all black people gone?
I wouldn't want to be around them. I don't like a traitor.
Would you ever invite me over to have dinner?
Oh, no.
The biggest racists in the galaxy who are the embodiment of Space Marine bloat, being a subchapter of the Imperial Fists that, for some reason, got their own army. But these chew-spittin' fellows follow 4 main rules so they can discriminate as hard as humanly possible. Suffer not the unclean to live. Uphold the honor of the Emperor. Abhor the witch. Destroy the witch. Accept any challenge, no matter the cost. Their current detachment rule allows them to pick one of these 4 rules, sort of a catch-all, discriminate as you see them type of rule. It feels really bad if you're a Tzeentch follower or a Grey Knights player though, because they are uber racist towards Psykers. The best answer for making an army rule for the Black Templars is the same as the Space Wolves. Just beef up their current detachment rule into an army rule. But for the sake of not stealing another rule, I thought I'd come up with a new creative rule that could work for them.
For the Emperor!
We are on to our final one. And let's just have a look here. It is... yeah, I don't know who that is. This was just a fun video I wanted to do to get the Space Marine itch out of my brain, and it definitely did the trick. Just finishing the script alone had me wanting to go start an Age of Sigmar army. Anyway, let me know what you thought down below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the different rules that GW could come up with for the Space Marines. If you made it this far in the video, thank you. I really appreciate it, and it means the world to me that you guys stuck around. Okay, say bye, Ruger. Ruger, say bye. Say bye. Oh, say bye, buddy. Yes, hi. Say bye.